The Vikings faced the most terrifying fears imaginable, and they did it on purpose. What they understood about conquering fear could change how you handle every hard thing in your life. Here are 6 Viking rules about facing your fears and how to use them today. 1. Focus on the oar. The Vikings lived in a world where the sea could swallow you, the weather could turn against you, your crops could fail, or your enemies could arrive without warning. But they thought of life as like a river. Some parts were already shaped before you arrived. Your family, your luck, your obligations, your body, your history, major events in your life. You do not choose the shape of the river, but you still have to steer the boat. So, worrying about parts of life that were never up to you was wasted effort and changed nothing. Fear often begins when we refuse to accept the shape of the situation we are already in. In psychology, this is called the dichotomy of control. Fear and anxiety mostly live in the gap between what we're trying to control and what we actually can. The mind grabs the outcome and runs it on a loop, as if enough worry could bend it. The fear loosens the moment you sort the situation into the 2 piles the Norse already created. This part is out of my control, how it turns out, what people think, what's already happened. This part is in my control, how prepared I am, how I show up, what I do next. It doesn't mean you stop feeling fear, it just means you stop spending energy on the riverbed and save it for rowing the oar. 2. Do it for the plot. The Vikings had almost nothing that lasted. No bank accounts, no photographs, no permanent homes for most of them. It was a life that could end in a storm, a raid, a bad winter, with no warning and no record. The only thing about a person that wasn't borrowed and temporary was the stories people told about you after you were gone. A line from Norse poetry reads, "Cattle die, kinsmen die, the self must also die, but the glory of reputation never dies, for the man who can get himself a good one." In the Norse world, reputation was not about being liked. It was the story your actions created around you. It was built through promises you kept and hard things you faced. This mindset changed how fear worked because when you are scared, the mind focuses on minimizing discomfort in the present. But a Viking looked past the present moment and used it as a chance to vote for who they wanted to become and how they wanted to be remembered. Modern psychology would call this identity-based motivation. You are more likely to do something difficult when it feels connected to the person you believe you are, or the person you are trying to become. Most fear is calculated from the position of who you are right now and how you might get hurt. But there is another person available to make the decision instead, the one you'll be a year from now, looking back. When faced with fear, ask yourself, what would that person wish they'd done? 3. Be more scared of avoidance. For the Vikings, dying with a weapon in your hand, facing something dangerous, could earn you a seat in Valhalla, Odin's hall, feasting and training alongside the greatest warriors until the end of the world. But dying quietly in bed of old age or sickness was called a straw death and meant you missed out on Valhalla. They pointed their fear somewhere else. They feared the version of their life where they avoided danger and had nothing to show for it. With this mindset, sitting out the battle became the scary option. Avoidance gives your nervous system short-term relief, but the fear usually comes back stronger because nothing actually changed. You did not prove you could handle the thing. You only proved you could postpone it. Fear wins because it makes the immediate risk look huge and the long-term cost look vague. So the move is not to pretend the hard thing is easy, but to make the cost of avoidance more clear. What happens if you don't do the scary thing? The scary thing has a price, but avoidance has a price too. The question is, which price gives you something in return? 4. Keep a clear mind. Vikings were definitely not leading a clean wellness lifestyle, but in Old Norse poetry, there is a warning that the more a man drinks, the less he knows his own mind. A dulled mind couldn't read a room, sense danger, or act well when it mattered. Numbing yourself didn't remove the risk in front of you, it just made you worse at being able to meet it. Fear already makes your mind harder to use. It exaggerates the danger, narrows your options, makes the fastest escape look like the smartest move. It can feel unbearable, and so the instinct is to turn the volume down on it. This isn't necessarily always through drinking. It could be scrolling, overeating, over-researching, or procrastinating. But the fear was actually just information that something in front of you matters. Numbing that signal means the danger is still there, and now you've also lost clear thinking on top of it. So the move is to stop treating the discomfort as the enemy. Instead of muting away the alarm, prove to the brain that fear can be present without being in charge. Allow yourself a small moment to be uncomfortable and still choose at least one action toward a goal before checking out. 5. Be prepared. Old Norse texts give the advice that before you enter a doorway, look around. Do not step away from your weapons in open country, because you do not know when you might need them. Viking confidence came from actively anticipating situations where they might be vulnerable, already knowing what they were walking into, and already being equipped for it. When people feel afraid before something, like a meeting, conversation, or decision, the instinct is often to try to talk themselves into feeling brave. Instead, at least one real piece of preparation can do more for nerves than 10 minutes of pep talk. Psychologically, it helps because it builds self-efficacy, the sense that you can actually handle the next step. To be more prepared, try to know the room before you're in it. Walk through what's actually going to happen, what you'll say, what your plan is if something goes wrong. Vikings didn't bother pretending to feel something they didn't. They just made sure they weren't walking in blind. 6. Don't go it alone. The modern image of facing fear is often portrayed as a private problem, one person managing alone, with nobody seeing the struggle, proving they are strong enough by themselves. But that's not how Viking courage worked. Norse society was built around bonds, family, sworn friendship, crews, loyalty, obligation. Courage was not an individual mood, but something held together by the group. A person without that kind of bond was vulnerable. A person with no one behind him was compared to a tree standing alone on a hilltop, no bark or leaves to protect it, withering away from taking the full force of wind without anything around to help absorb it. Viking warriors didn't walk into danger as individuals gritting their teeth. They went in as a unit, shouting together, covering each other, because courage wasn't something you were expected to generate all by yourself. And that makes sense, because fear doesn't get smaller because it is hidden. Actually, fear gets worse in isolation. Bringing in another person so that you are not alone with a fear can change its shape, stop it from spiraling, and help bring the mind out of threat mode long enough to think clearly again. The Vikings pointed fear at what they could control instead of what they couldn't. They let it be outweighed by who they wanted to be. They redirected it toward the cost of doing nothing instead of the cost of trying. They kept a clear head, prepared instead of postured, and never made anyone carry it alone. The Vikings didn't make fear disappear, but they found better ways of carrying it. Now, you know how to carry yours.